Hey guys, welcome to the Driveway Liberty Podcast. We are coming to you live from the Burnett Corporate Center in the beautiful Freeport, Florida, in our new studios, man. Hey, I am your Uncle Wes, and I'm sitting here with my good buddies Travis and Dan, and we've got a heck of a show for you tonight. First off, what we want to do is thank you in advance for sharing the broadcast with your friends and family, because we are most definitively shadow banned. So when we post to Facebook and YouTube, their algorithms don't show it to anybody. So
yeah, we need you guys to be the algorithm.
yeah, definitely help us defeat the algorithm. But how you boys doing this evening?
Doing good. I'm running hot on about 4 hours sleep because we had a very late night last night in Jacksonville, which unfortunately Gianna's softball team got bitch slapped in the bottom of the sixth inning, lost 9-0 in the regional semifinals, but it was a good run.
There you go.
But got home about 4 a.m. and I'm on dog duty, so I had to get up at like 8.
Dog duty.
Yeah,
Man. Cool. Trav, you having a good week over there, buddy?
Yeah, it's been a good week so far. I do want to say congratulations to Wes. On getting a new vehicle.
Yeah.
Oh yeah.
The PTO meetings will never be the same. And,
Well, I don't mind riding in a 4-wheel drive, 400 horse vehicle to a PTO
Hey,
meeting.
you know
Somebody's got to come up.
what grown adults do behind closed doors is their
It's
their
their
prerogative.
business.
I'm,
Yeah.
I'm not one to judge. So as long as you're okay with it.
Just don't put it in the beer commercial. Okay.
Right? No, man, I'm cool with what I got. I've actually, it's kind of spoiling a little bit.
It's kind of a nice
I
ride.
mean, it rides
ride.
like riding on cushion.
You get the extra wave now from the moms in the car pickup line.
Man, yeah.
They're like, oh well, he's one of us now. Like,
Yeah, they're like, oh, look at there. He's my safe space.
but no, congratulations. Congratulations.
Thank
I
you.
know not having a vehicle is stressful.
Dude, it sucks. We did the 38 GOP thing the other night, which will be out eventually. But we went and did that. And I unloaded the truck, got all the equipment in, and then went out to move the truck out of the way, and it wouldn't start. That's the one that I borrowed from my buddy Steve, and the alternator just went out. And I'm like, I called Dan. I said, "Hey man, you coming tonight?"
Yeah, but you're not driving. Like, you're on a bad street.
Yeah,
so-
yeah, dude. I'm not driving, and I didn't want to load up a bunch of equipment in a micro Uber.
Right.
I'd have to get the XL to get the speakers and everything in, and that's $150 commitment around here.
So I brought Black Betty to the rescue.
Nice.
Yeah, he did. That was it was good of Dan to do that. Dan was tired. He was like, "Man, I wasn't planning on coming." I was like, "Well, I might need a ride."
You say how tired I was. I had one beer.
Yeah,
Literally one
Whoa,
beer.
that is tight.
yeah.
Then Saturday night, me and Dan hung out, and we had Brooklyn had a beach volleyball tournament, so we got on the beach at like 8:30. We got done at 4. And even if you're sitting in the
It's a
shade
long day.
and the wind picks
Yeah.
up,
Yeah.
it was like I was all hopped up, like, oh, we got some beer, like, oh, we're going to dance. In about 30 minutes after sitting dance, it was like
We're both like this.
you could just feel the.
Yes.
So I think we wrapped it up pretty early. And then,
Yeah, y'all did.
Then Wes was mad, and I'm like, if you were going to skip Waffle House, it would have been prudent to check with us prior to skipping Waffle House, as opposed to skipping Waffle House and then calling us.
Hey, if I'm being honest, I did not skip Waffle
Okay.
House.
There you go, right? So,
This is kind of an after show tradition when we're
Yeah.
playing out of town. We hit the Waffle House.
yeah. And I know that was meant to make me and Dan feel bad. And I did not. Maybe
It didn't
Dan
work.
did. Yeah.
Yeah, it didn't work at all. You guys were in bed.
They
But
were asleep.
quite frankly, I was kind of glad y'all were, because I was pretty exhausted.
Was it easy out for you?
It wasn't easy out. I was like, man, I'm going to, if they're still up, I'll go by. But I'm kind of hoping they're not.
Right. Yeah. No, it was.
And we came through for you.
Yeah.
Yeah, you did. I appreciate you boys being there for me.
Yeah, it was funny because we had been to the beach, and then we did like Mother's Day because Brooklyn and the wife had to work the next morning.
Mhm.
It was just easier. And I had stopped and got a case of Yingling for Dan, and it was just sitting right there on the island. You guys know the kitchen. And
Yeah.
so it's sitting there, and eventually Millie just keeps looking at it, and she looks at me, and she's like, "What's the beer for?" I'm like, "I already told you I'm going over to Dan's. Dan didn't have any beer. He asked me to pick him up a case of beer." And she it's like this natural reflex. She was like, "Well, is he paying us back for it?" And she immediately stops, like, "Okay, I don't care." But yeah, I was like, oh, yeah, Dad offered cash. I'm going to drink some of them, but she's like, "Sorry, I'm like, it's fine."
tired.
It's that collegiate,
Yeah.
that old school, like, hey, what?
We'll supply a lot of things, but we ain't supplying.
It's like, hey, can you give me a ride somewhere? You gonna give me some gas money?
Right.
I mean, that's that kind of natural.
I don't know if you've seen that. It's like on these funny Facebook posts or whatever, and this one person posts, "I'm not a taxi. If you ask a ride from me, I want some money." And somebody wrote back, "That literally makes you a taxi."
That's exactly how taxis work, no doubt.
There you go.
But it has been a shocking week.
Well, really?
Not really.
Has it?
So, I will tell you this: I did not expect to see the man that pointed at justice overturned Roe v. Wade basically say that Republicans and signing heartbeat bills is going to lose the election in 2024. I did not see that one coming.
Yeah. I think looking at the big picture of all of that, the biggest problem is Republicans doing exactly that kind of stuff and compromising those important morals and those foundational principles. I mean,
You know, and one of the things, and I know we've got some other stuff, but Steve Dace, who Dan and I listen to regularly, he talks about a man can't rise above his worldview.
right?
Okay? And Donald Trump's worldview is the art of the deal. So he wanted to overturn Roe so that then he can go make deals in the States. Like, I have a hard time believing you can't be a hard pro-life champion, have the biggest pro-life win in history,
Right?
and then try to back off of it. Like, what's your strategy there?
No, it's kind of like the Bud Light commercials. So, everybody went hard on like boycotting Bud Light. They started backing off, and now the LGBTQ plus community is boycotting them because they backed off of their stance with that shit. They tried to blame it on whatever reasoning they blamed it on. But you lose credibility when you take a hardline stance, and you gain things.
Yeah, but I think Travis's point is Trump didn't take a hardline stance. It was just another process in which the way he does business. He won a victory. Now it's a political talking point. He'll use it for what it's worth, but the actual meaning of it doesn't have the same effect with him as it does with the people who believe in the pro-life movement.
Yeah, I mean, I was happy Roe was overturned so it could go to the states, so we could pass a heartbeat bill in the state of Florida.
Yeah.
Right.
Right, and there's no real evidence that the abortion issue has been a negative. And again, I'll ask the question: how many abortions are worth a congressional seat? How many are worth a Senate seat? How many are worth the presidency? When you start doing the math that way, because that's what we're talking about.
Right.
Is children not living? What's the math there? Tell me what the math is. If you think that's too harsh, tell me what the math is to try to win a presidency. How many children need to be aborted where it's a even match? That's where I struggle. And to me, one of the things that Dobbs decision proved more than anything was when there's bad precedent on the Supreme Court, and there's tons of bad precedent.
Sure.
Oh, yeah.
And you file the right bill, and you push it the right way, and you do the right thing, you can get the law overturned.
Right.
Oh, yeah, absolutely.
And you can do it the right way. You can also do California and those types of things where they just completely ignore Supreme Court orders and do what they want to, and nothing happens. Which I'm in favor of, but I don't know. I was very caught off guard to see Trump and a bunch of Trump influencers now saying heartbeat bills are too much. We got to back off and try to win. Like, this was never our stance. And like, well, okay, I don't. It really is shocking to me.
Yeah, I don't know. they double down on this stuff.
Well, here's my problem, is if the math for the Trump campaign is, if DeSantis is for it, we're against it, that's bad math.
Well,
That's
that
terrible
seems to be
math.
the math.
That's
I mean-
exactly the math.
It's, well, at least right now,
What
leading up to
now?
DeSantis.
If we're
running.
being honest, from Trump, that's not surprising. He is going to take the stances to ostracize the opponent. He's going to take opposing stances to do that. What troubles me more than anything is the followers who support him,
Well,
who are willing to follow him down those roads.
Well, it's the same people who love DeSantis, and now because Trump has painted a picture of DeSantis as the enemy, now they're anti-DeSantis.
Right.
Just rolling right along with it.
a good friend and follower of ours, oh, well, he's tied in with Karl Rove and Paul Ryan and all that. Like, is that the Karl Rove that worked on the 2020 Trump campaign? Is that the same one or a different one?
Is that
Oh,
the
and-
Paul Ryan that Trump just bragged about how
Yes.
awesome he was?
Is that the Paul Ryan that a Freedom Caucus, who Ron DeSantis was a founding member, was founded to stop? That, or is this a different Paul Ryan?
Right.
And so if that's just what we're gonna do, like, oh, if this is the opponent and if he's for it, we gotta go the opposite way. Like, that's, what do we do? Are we trying to win? Or are we trying to own the libs? Are we trying to prop up CNN's ratings? Like, what's our actual goal through winning election?
Yeah. What's the game plan?
The true fact is, the Republican Party couldn't answer that question.
Well, and I also think there's a thing where people,
Or their actions don't move towards answering that question.
people want to be told what to believe and what the right path. They don't want to do the research. They don't want to come to their own conclusions. They don't want to spend the time and effort to research something. They're going to trust the person they followed. And Trump did a lot of good things in office, so they feel like, okay, well, he did these good things. We can trust him.
Well, and so the other thing that's going on this week that has been, it's not surprising, but what has gone on is the Durham report. came
Right.
out. Okay, and I'm sure Dan's got notes on it. And I read everything in there and was like, yeah, Dan Bongino's been doing the show for like the last 5 years.
Right?
There's nothing new in there. Like, I didn't see any new revelations. Dan, were there? I mean, now, they all came out at different times, and credit to Dan Bongino, he was probably the best at putting it all together in a timeline, in a straight line of this happened, then this happened, then this, then this. But I see the reaction, and it's just like, oh, can you believe this?
Well, I think the difference here is this is, if you believe in special counsels and you believe that they are credible and actually find the truth, like everybody told you the Mueller investigation was going to.
Right?
Well, in reality, it looks like they do find the truth, because Mueller found Big Nothing Burger, and now Durham does this, and not only doesn't finds a nothing burger with Trump, reiterates what Mueller came up with, but also shows you how the Clinton campaign, in cahoots with the Obama administration,
And
Actually-
the Department of Justice.
actually
And the
tried to
FBI.
to influence
Right.
and steal the 2016 election.
But it wasn't just the FBI, it was the CIA as well.
It was the
I mean, the
entire
de-
administrative
Yeah.
state, the swamp, the deep state, whatever you want to call it, the entire mechanism that was under the Obama administration.
It was a united
weaponized
front.
to stop
is what
Trump.
it was.
Sure, absolutely. And to me, that's not a revelation. at
No,
all.
it's not. We believed this all along, but now
Right.
I guess there's
but,
proof.
But there was, I guess there's like the United States government admitted it. I mean, kind of, because he's a special counsel. But, and then the reaction to this that I see is all like, They did this, they did this. Okay, so here's my question. And again, I'm not trying to make this a Trump bashing session, but I don't understand this. If Dan Bongino in 2017, who was a pretty small podcaster at that point, was putting it all together, are you telling me the presidential administration wasn't putting it all together?
Yes.
Oh, okay, well then that opens another question that I mean, you know what I'm saying? Like,
Let's dig into that question,
Okay.
because Steve Deace, if any of you watch his show, I would ask you to go listen to his rant yesterday, so Tuesday's show.
Tuesday, yep, May 16th.
Listen to his show, in which he kind of talks a little bit about the Mueller report and then kind of sums up the current situation we're in. So I've got some details on that, so let's talk about it. So the issue, we all now know that the 2016 election was attempted to be stolen. Before and then after that attempt failed, because think about this, Clinton was winning in every poll.
Yeah, so.
Like, why did Clinton try to steal it if
Well,
she knew
that's
she
what I
was
want to
going
know.
to
Like,
win?
what was the trigger for them to start this?
Because
There had to
the
be some kind of
polls,
poll.
the polls that were being reported weren't accurate polls.
Well, and they probably knew the truth.
And,
maybe.
and what was out there and the news sources were reporting
Right,
were all
internal
BS.
polls, yeah, the internal polling probably showed something else. But, Okay, so go ahead, Dan. Sorry.
Okay, so then Trump wins. So then after that, they literally tried to do a coup.
right?
Like, this whole thing is a coup. And again, we talk about this multiple times. Whenever they accuse you of doing something, they're the ones doing that. 100% a coup.
Right. Yep.
Soft, hard, I mean, non-military coup. I guess that's the difference between soft and hard.
All right, I was
The
wondering a little bit where you're going with that.
The
But
military didn't come and take over.
Correct.
So it was a soft coup. Administrative state went after it. So, like, despite the election interference and all this stuff, Trump wins. They go through the coup, and then now, like, this was funny when Steve Deace said this. He goes, knowing all this, now that we've got all the answers, now that we know this, we're going to expect our government to tell us the truth about Ukraine.
right,
They're going to tell us the truth about January 6th.
yeah,
Right.
Operation
You know,
Warp Speed.
all this stuff.
Yeah.
So they're, the government's come clean now. So they're gonna come clean with us about all
Oh,
this other
sure,
stuff.
sure they are.
Yeah, bullshit. So the way he presented it is, we have three choices.
Well, I think someone presented it to him that, hey, here's our three choices.
Well, that was two in him, but he rambled out and said we have three choices, and in actuality there's four. When you think about this, so this is for Republicans. Choice number one is continue the anger and the outrage, the post on Facebook, the social media, the clickbait Republican shows out there.
Right.
That do nothing but just
The
promote our
yeah,
outrage.
Right, to own the libs and
Yeah.
to point out how big of hypocrites they are.
Yeah.
And, yes.
And then hopefully at some point we're going to shout loud enough that the bad guys are going to realize that they're bad, they're
Right,
going to
yes.
fix themselves. So that's choice one.
Yeah, the lion eating the gazelle is going to be like, God dang it, I really shouldn't have done that.
Yeah.
He's got a family.
Yeah.
Which,
It's a bad choice.
the bad part is, that first choice is what we're really freaking good at. We're really good at
Yes.
that side.
Yes.
Yeah.
All right, so here's the next one. The next one is we have to vote for Trump. Trump is the guy that is going to tear all of this down. He's the wrecking ball.
Oh, yeah?
Right? So the guy who appointed James Comey,
Yes.
who helped weaponize the FBI to try to keep Trump from getting elected, and then after he was elected, tried to take the presidency away from him. This is the guy, he's the wrecking ball. So then after Trump finally fires him, he appoints Christopher Wray in his place, who is demonstratively worse.
Yes.
Yeah.
So now this guy has completely weaponized the FBI against everyone who would be pro-Trump
Right.
and the ideals that conservatives
And raided Trump's home.
Yes,
Yeah.
yes. So Trump's the wrecking ball. So that's number two
Wait,
there.
hold on. the guy who raided Trump's home, who Trump a few weeks ago, Dan started screaming about it. It's like, well, you know, we just got to give him time to see whether or not he's getting like, wait, what?
The guy who said Antifa doesn't exist, it's an
Yes,
idea.
And that white supremacy is our biggest national terrorism.
The guy who's running the Stasi, the secret
Yes,
police,
basically.
like
Right.
using the FBI. So the answer is to reelect the guy who put all these people in place. We, the people who said, don't take the jab, it's poison, so we need to vote for the guy who funded and created the jab.
And who won't back
And
off
still
of
brags
it.
about it.
Yes.
The guy, we all know that lockdowns are bad, right?
Right.
Look at all the damage the lockdowns have done. So we need to vote for the guy who initiated it.
Yep.
So that's option 2. So then option 3 is prudent policy and governance. So you've got using the power given to our elected representatives to wreck the system by changing it through governing, through legislating. Because if you don't believe prudent policy and good legislation can't fix our situation, then you have only one other choice. Go get your fucking guns and start shooting.
Right.
And look, here's where we're at. And the good policy is the biggest disruptor of all.
Mm-hmm.
And I
Look at what's doing. We're seeing it in action.
yes,
In Florida.
and in Florida, like Nikki Fried's on Twitter, she's having to celebrate a middle of May mayoral race because that's really the only thing they've won.
Yeah.
Like
Yeah.
she's just like trying to dunk on the GOP, and it's like, yeah, I don't think this is going.
I just
like
keep
you
putting
think
up
it
that meme that says, picture of her with a car behind her, said, "Get in, losers. We're going to lose."
is. Right? Okay. Like, and so, what, my question all along has been like, what are we interested in governing and getting back to a true American way of life, or are we interested in hilarious Twitter clips? And I mean, because I know what we've been doing for the last 30 years, and it hasn't been very effective.
Right.
But going back to the lockdown stuff, this guy, poor guy, he got wrapped up. But it was talking about inflation, and it was a Florida guy that's political, and I just made a comment and I said, if I was the DeSantis campaign, I would pin the inflation on Trump.
Because it's true.
Because it's true.
And
printed the money?
his response was, no, we shouldn't do that. The Democrats are the real enemies. Like,
No,
well,
no,
I would say big spending Republicans are just as big, but
Yeah.
whatever.
Well, and I appreciate the loyalty, but here's the thing. Trump's going to just continually try to kick DeSantis in the nuts all the way through until DeSantis says, I'm not running, or DeSantis starts fighting back or lays down one or the other. I mean, you know.
Well, and so this guy then comes back, the guy chimes in and like, this is, I'm like, oh man, I really didn't pick you as someone that is pro-lockdown, pro-jab, you know, and just go through the list. And he's like, I'm not, that's stupid. You know, that's leftist BS. And I'm like, no, I'm just quoting Trump on literally all of these.
You're right. Yeah.
You know, and so then they want to get back to the monetary stuff, and it's like, well, if you look at that chart that you posted, because I posted the M1 money supply chart, which shows 80% of all dollars ever printed in the same year. And he's like, that was Biden. Like, there was one guy that was president. Like, if we're going to have a primary, let's have a primary on actual policies and policies we can implement and win and change the country.
Yeah, Lindsay just made the comment, I didn't realize Trump or any POTUS had the power to lock us down. I was under the opinion it had to be done locally, not federally. The lockdowns, if you'll remember, 2 weeks.
15 days.
15 days to slow the curve.
Slow the curve.
Yep.
That came from the federal level. The states voluntarily complied with that.
And if you're in a presidential election year, you have a Republican governor, even if it was a Democrat or a Republican president, Republican governors are going to be hard pressed to just buck them right off the start.
Sure.
Name a state or state government that didn't do what the federal government told them to do. didn't go along with it.
There is one
There's lots.
instance.
There's when Trump was president, California, sanctuary states, all that stuff.
Yeah.
They literally, if they don't agree with it, they won't do it. But in this instance, where it was it was a policy that Trump's people put out there that all of the people with bad intentions realized it was going to give them power.
Yeah.
So they jumped on it. So
Right, but then to refresh Lindsay, Brian Kemp broke from Trump was the first like decently populated state, like South Dakota and Chrissy Nome.
Never locked down.
Their population density for the entire state is less than our little county,
Yeah.
which is very like per capita acre or whatever. Okay.
Right.
And so but Georgia was the first kind of high profile state to say no. And what did Brian Kemp get? He got berated.
Yeah.
Well, Trump went after
From the White House. Yes.
Trump went after.
Yeah.
Yes, from the White House. And then, all these different things. So yes, it did. But then when people said, hey, this isn't working, we're going to go a different direction, the then president decided they were going to stand up there and berate a governor, a Republican governor.
Absolutely.
In a swing state months before a presidential election.
And there's precedent out there. If you'll look back when the drinking age was raised to 21, and that was a federal suggestion.
Mm-hmm.
Everybody but the state of Louisiana did that basically immediately in the 80s. Louisiana refused to do that. The federal government withheld highway improvement funds until they complied.
Well, Reagan did the same thing with the 55-mile-an-hour speed limit
Yeah.
on the highways.
So
You're not getting federal money on your federal roads if you don't change them to
see,
55.
and the point is, if we win elections, and the point is to actually govern, as I think the point in Florida, and look, let's take Ron DeSantis out of it. Let's talk about the supermajorities in the House and the Senate this time around.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, Shane Abbott was here, and he said, yeah, I'm voting on a heartbeat bill.
Speaking of which, Shane Abbott will be back on the show middle of next month.
And what happened? Well, we got a heartbeat bill.
Yep.
Now we got better gun laws, not great gun laws, but we took steps forward.
Yeah.
Florida is significantly a freer state, and it cannot be overturned with executive orders. Why? Because not only did we win,
Right.
we then enacted prudent
Legislation.
Right.
legislation.
Yep.
Okay. And honestly, with most of the votes, if DeSantis had wanted to veto it, didn't matter. They had supermajorities that were just turned
Yeah.
So DeSantis gets a lot of the credit, as he probably should, but all of these state, the state representatives, state senators, they did what was right too, right? Because the election of 2022 showed these folks, hey, don't mess around. We just gave you the biggest majorities in Florida history. You go do what you said you were going to do, and they did. We were not super hopped up for Jay Trumbull, but his voting record right so far is about 100%.
If you can take the people involved in this out of it, in these choices, so take Trump out, take DeSantis out, take whoever it is out, and then look at the situation we're in, where you have a choice of continued yelling but really getting nothing done,
Right.
and then you have a choice of voting for somebody who governs in a way that we can actually make changes
Mm-hmm.
to improve this, or we have a civil war. Like, that's it. That's all we have. We can sit back and yell and scream and make posts, and we're going to lose. The country is going to be gone.
Right.
Yeah.
In X amount of time, whatever it is, 5 years, 10 years, 2 years, whatever it is, they're going to take over because we haven't done anything to stem the tidal wave of what's happened just in the time that since Trump started running for office. Look what's happened
Right.
in that 8 years period of time.
Well, and that brings us back to, and a matter of fact, Travis is wearing a shirt tonight, our idea, and so is Dan, of be your own hero. You cannot sit back and wait. You can't sit here idly by, and you can't count on Trump. You can't even count on DeSantis to do what needs to be done. And it's a group effort, man, and you've got to be engaged, you've got to be involved, you've got to be communicating with your representatives and letting them know you're not standing for BS anymore.
Well, and the other thing is, like, when we talk about election integrity and all these things, and so I do think the point that the 2 points that Dan were making, we can either try, like, actually governing at a federal level, because I would say since Reagan's first term, we haven't tried that too much.
Yeah.
No, we haven't at all.
Okay. And then, okay, so what's the other option? Well, if you truly believe that if you're in these states and those votes don't count, it's time to start throwing tea in the harbor. I mean, if that's truly what you believe, because if that's not your next step, then either you don't believe what you just said you believe, or you don't care enough to do anything about it.
Absolutely.
And to me, this primary is going to show us, and I've said it all along. If Trump comes out, hey, look, these lockdowns, the jabs, like, I'm not asking for mea culpa, but how about just a little bit of, but to me, this primary is going to be about, we're going to make a decision as people who believe in freedom and liberty. Like, are we actually interested in governing and getting back to our American values? Or we just want funny Twitter clips?
Yep, well, I want both, if I'm being honest.
Okay.
I enjoy the funny
You know what the funny
clips.
Twitter clips I like to see is? The Florida Democrats crying and getting arrested because they know they're about to lose a heartbeat bill.
No, those are the best.
And Nikki Fried and the Senate Minority Leader are getting arrested in a Democrat city because they're trying to protest a bill that they know is going to happen. That's the funniest Twitter clip I've seen all year.
Yeah, those are great. Those are great. I'm not diminishing what you're saying.
Right.
But I don't want it to have to be either or. I
Right.
want to see the funny Twitter clips.
Right. Well,
but I want policy to pass too. I mean,
Okay.
yeah.
Well, the winning yields the which yields funny Twitter clips.
There you go. So, hey guys, guess what time it is?
Ooh, hit the button.
It is time for beer reviews. Beer reviews. Beer reviews.
So, hey guys, as you can see, it is time for beer reviews. I'm going to go first tonight. I usually pass the torch for the first one. I am drinking a Lazy Magnolia.
That's a good one.
Southern Pecan. Number one, primarily because I enjoy the taste of it, but two, since we are in the Burnett Corporate Center here in Freeport, Florida, I have to drive back home to Santa Rosa Beach, and I figured a lower ABV, even lower than Miller Lite, matter of fact, it's 4.5%, would be a good choice.
You know what? I was thinking the bourbon barrel, but the pecan's, sorry.
No, the bourbon barrel's what, like 18%? Yeah, that's
For some reason, I was thinking the pecan was heavier than that.
No, it's only 4.5%. And you know what, man? You look at the label and you see Lazy Magnolia, Southern Pecan, and you would think this brewery is based somewhere in the South.
It's Mississippi. Lazy Magnolia's in Mississippi.
Yeah, it is. Sorry, I don't know why I was thinking it was somewhere up north. I was thinking it was somewhere up north.
Crooked letter, crooked letter, crooked letter,
Yeah.
letter, humpback, I.
That's it. So that's what I'm drinking tonight, and it's quite tasty. Daniel, what you drinking over there, buddy?
Well, I went local.
Yeah.
I am drinking Pensacola Bay Brewery Riptide Amber Ale.
Ooh, that's a good one too.
So this beer is quite fantastic. 5.4 ABV, so it's drinkable, but it's my amber style. I like it. And you know what's really cool about this beer?
What's that?
Is there's literally no logo on the cap. So these guys are going bare bones basic. So it's kind of like when I brew beer, it's how I brew beer.
Yeah.
No logo on the cap.
You've never brewed me beer,
But I have before I knew you guys. I haven't
Okay.
brewed since then.
I
It's coming.
gotta be honest with you. I feel like it should have been the reverse of that. You should have
Well-
picked up this beer brewing, since we do a beer review every week.
Beer review.
But anyways,
There's no logo on this cap, dude. I've got
Yours is
mine.
black, mine's silver.
Okay. Well, don't be
Well,
right.
it doesn't mean that your beer's not cool too. It just means this one's cool. Travis, what are you drinking?
so I do want to give a big kudos to you guys.
Oh, kudos to
Okay.
us.
Yeah. When y'all were talking about getting together, like riding up here, stopping getting lunch and beers, I was a little worried what I was going to walk into at 5:15 when I got here. But great job on the moderation. Congrats.
We came in, went to work,
We
man.
literally
Yeah.
drank one beer
Yeah.
before the podcast.
All right.
Yeah.
All right. Congrats.
All
I
right,
gotta be
thank
honest.
you.
So when I pulled out of the Sefco and I grabbed beer up here, I was like, this might be real
It's
fun.
going to be a shit show. I'm walking in.
Get on the racetrack a
Travis is
little
going to be
late.
the only
Yeah.
one able to talk.
Exactly.
on
I'm
the podcast.
going to be the only one able to talk, and I'm going to drive all of us home. But, so I stopped, and, we hadn't quite got to the Miller Lite stuff yet, but, like, wow, just sell beer.
Right? Just
Please
sell
just
it.
sell
Yeah.
beer, guys.
Stop making political
So,
stances.
I'm still kind of torn on the Miller Lite, the feminism thing. And,
Like,
oh,
the
man.
commercial's kind of funny, and at least they know what a woman is.
Okay, yeah. I'll
So
give you
I'm
that.
not
Yeah.
mad at them
Right,
necessarily for that, and it was during Women's Month or whatever.
Women's History Month. I mean,
Yeah.
we have
So
every
I'm
month or something.
I'm not super mad at them about it,
Right.
but like this Swedish bikini team commercials and I mean,
The reason you have a company, a giant beer company now, is because of girls in bikinis.
Hey,
Right.
why do you think Hooters is still around?
Yeah.
I mean, it's not because
because they even have Hooters anymore.
they have great
Right.
food.
Yeah.
They have good food with Hooters
If done correctly, yes. Yeah,
and
Yeah.
tight orange shorts and
And they changed them
Hooters.
recently, and like on the backside, it's a little more
Right.
and Hooters.
Sal. Good job.
Right.
Yeah, and they had the bikini thing going. They had the
Yeah,
calendar, the
had
whole
the
nine
calendar,
yards.
yeah.
Right.
I know someone who was
Sex sells, people.
Yeah.
Yeah, it does. I mean, speaking of which,
No, hold on, I ain't even got my beer.
Oh,
yet. Like,
sorry,
geez,
sorry,
I try to give you guys one compliment. Anyways, so I think I'm gonna just put a moonshine still in my damn garage, so I don't have to worry about
Brew your own beer.
Right, like just that way I don't have to worry about it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But Yingling, I still haven't seen anything bad about Yingling.
Yeah, no.
So I assumed Dan might have Yingling, and I was like, well, I don't want to both have Yingling for the like 5th time in a row.
I'll be
Right.
honest, that case of Yingling you brought over
Uh-huh.
is gone.
Shut up. Nice work, Dan. So, but I got Yingling, but I got the light,
Okay.
and it says it's the next generation of light beer. And
Okay.
it's actually good. So it's got 2.6 carbs and 95 calories. Only negative.
Yeah.
4.2% alcohol.
Hey,
That's right.
we're a distance from the house. That's
Well, remember
that's
we-
responsible.
Right.
Remember we did that Lagunitas daytime?
Yeah.
Everybody's kind of getting into this.
Right.
The good tasting brewers are getting into
Right.
The low
This-
yeah.
ABV.
this. Hey,
Okay.
Bud Light's gonna fuck themselves up.
Right.
Miller Light's now
Hey,
gonna fuck
hey, you
themselves
know what?
up.
If
Let's
we
capture
just
some
make
market share
right,
there.
If we just make a 4 or 5% beer,
Yeah.
it's amazing how many people
Yeah,
will be
with
able to
low
drink at a
calories
time
and
and
low
they'll have to
carbs.
buy more. Like,
So
Right,
that
yeah.
daytime from
Like-
Lagunitas is
Like if I buy 6 Hooter Browns, that's it. That's all the beers I'm buying that
Yeah,
day.
yep.
Like, so, but it's actually a good beer. I like it. If it was 5.2 instead, it'd probably be my new go-to.
Right.
So, anyways, the search continues.
Mhm.
that daytime from Lagunitas is like 4%. I mean, it's low.
Yeah, that's
Yeah.
4.2%.
Yeah, low.
There you go. So that is
Beer reviews.
your beer review.
It is time for beer reviews. Beer reviews. Beer reviews.
Beer reviews. So there you go, man. That's the beer reviews. Before we get into any more politics here, let me throw a couple of little things in your ear. Starting next month, we will start the Panhandle Liberty podcast, which will be a local cast. It's only about a 30-minute show, which Dan and I haven't really even discussed, but I'm throwing that out there.
Hey, quick shout out.
Yeah,
I listened to the one from last week that we had to do during the day,
yeah,
and like you guys did,
yeah,
and talking about more content. I'm like excited to be ready for that.
yeah.
Like, because with my schedule in the summer, there's no way we'd be able to put out more content. So
No, we're committed, man. We're going to take 2-3 days a week where we're actually working on content. We're going to do some articles, some written articles.
I know I'm excited for Dan to do some written articles where every other word is fuck.
and literally, and the every other one is literally.
Literally fuck.
It's like the whole. It'll be a 1,000-word article that says literally fuck, literally
Right.
fuck,
Exactly.
literally fuck.
So,
But yeah, we're going to start the Panhandle Liberty podcast, and then in July we're going to start Driveway Liberty Sports.
Yeah, we got some sports stuff to.
Yeah, so we're looking for sponsors, especially for the local one. You know, if you are a local business here in the Florida Panhandle, we'd love to represent your business there.
especially a certain seafood restaurant not too far from us now.
Yeah, right. Yeah, yeah. Sign on up, Trey. Sorry, I can't help it. I can't help it. No, I mean, you know, we would. Bless you.
Anyways, so
All right, yeah, moving on. Before I get Travis.
come on,
in
7
trouble.
days. Like that's it.
No, that was the other thing I was going to say. All right, so next week is Travis's last week as a regular co-host on the podcast. Hopefully, he'll come back on occasion. So what we're going to do, we'll do a live stream Wednesday night, but next weekend.
Dun, dun, dun.
I don't know if we should live stream it or if we should just record it. But we are going to do our third whiskey cast, and this one will most definitively be aired, unlike the first two. So it's going to be a shit show, regardless.
Look, I'm going to have a closing monologue for
Yeah.
my last live stream. Okay. Somewhere between 28 and 30 minutes. So I may just take the whole second segment.
Yeah,
I'm just kidding.
we'll do beer reviews, and then Dan and I'll
But
walk
what
off.
I'm also going to do is I'm going to write out a monologue for the second half of the whiskey cast.
And try to read
And
it.
try to read it.
That sounds like the second show of some of our earlier podcasts.
Right?
When
Yeah.
we were audio only.
Yeah, and so that final podcast will be in the driveway, kind of as a closeout to Travis's tenure with us full time, and plus we don't want to have to drive anywhere.
Yeah.
Yeah, we definitely don't need to do one.
Everybody's within
Yeah.
walking distance. Or
Although if we could just get somebody to drive one of these trolleys out here, we'd
couch.
be all right.
Right? Yeah.
Party trolley.
Yeah.
The party truck. I think rats have eaten electronics out of it.
So can I tell you what? The studio is really nice.
Thank you.
Shout
Thank you.
shout to you and Steve on that.
Yeah.
I am starting to notice like just random like license plates and hubcaps and stop signs and just some random
Yeah.
decorations everywhere. It has a college dormish kind of feel.
Yeah, a little bit. Yeah, a little bit. It's supposed to be a dude's hangout and a
Like-
music studio.
Like if you just
so-
got a random orange road cone and threw it in the corner,
There you
Right.
go.
kind of
Milk.
complete the motif.
milk crate, nightstand kind
Right,
of thing.
yeah.
Yeah.
That'll be my desk. A pile of milk crate,
Yeah.
and like a 1x12.
Right.
Right. Yeah. Piece of plywood. Not even plywood. OSB because our budgets.
Right.
Yeah, 1x12s are pretty expensive.
Right. Yeah. Absolutely. So, what else you got, Daniel?
Well, everybody's been talking about, I shouldn't say everybody, the psychos on the left have been talking about the illegitimacy of the Supreme Court. How, whenever they don't get a ruling their way, they want to ignore it or they want to tear down the credibility of the court.
Right.
Well, I don't know if the Supreme Court's like listening to them and letting them influence them or what, but there's a assault weapons ban that passed in Illinois. So I'm going to read it to you. Illinois passed the Protect Illinois Communities Act on January 10th, banning the sale, purchase, manufacture, and delivery and importation of assault weapons and large capacity magazines, with exceptions for law enforcement, military members, and certain other professionals with firearm training. The legislation specifically names AR-15s and AK-47 rifles and requires lawful owners of semi-automatic rifles to register their ownership with state police. So that passed.
What
State
was
of
this?
Illinois.
Illinois.
So
Hold on. Can I just pause real quick before? It's so weird in these bills. They never take guns away from the government. Like if the guns are the problem,
Right.
oh no, they make exceptions for the government.
if the gun, but what they will tell you is any AR-15 is a problem.
Yeah. Except
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 The
if the
IRS
government,
has it.
government,
if
yes.
the EPA has it.
it makes me lean towards you
ATF,
don't really believe the AR-15 is the problem,
No,
right?
Yeah.
you just don't think we should have guns.
Yeah.
Right.
Then why is that? I'm sure it's like just a, it's a normal reason. It's not
Because you-
totally nefarious. So.
Because you hate us and you want us all to die.
Okay, well,
Yeah,
That's
there it
pretty
is.
much it.
it's probably not normal nor nefarious.
There it is, right here.
So this case has actually gone before Court of Appeals in the Seventh Circuit. So initially, the first Court of Appeals ruled for a stay. They're like, this is unconstitutional. We're putting a stay in place.
Mm-hmm.
And then the U.S. Court of Appeals for the Seventh District is currently considering the case, but they lifted the injunction, and it went before the Supreme Court. And guess who it went to?
The Supreme Court.
Kavanaugh.
Amy Coney Barrett.
Okay. And good news, right?
The Supreme Court has decided to kick the can down the road and not rule on lifting, or not rule on the injunction.
Have they kicked it back to the lower court and said y'all need to make a ruling on
They have
this?
kicked it to the lower court, but without the injunction in place. So now it's law in Illinois until they undo it, if they do undo it.
Well, that was because the upper court, the appeals court,
The
did
lower
not-
court
what?
put an injunction in place. The
Okay.
next step took the injunction away.
Okay.
Then they asked the Supreme Court to rule
Well,
on it. The Supreme Court said, "Nah, we're
As
not gonna
much
rule on
as I don't like them kicking the political hot potato down the road, what they did was precedent and it's common procedure. When they kick it back to the lower court below them, what they do is they give them an opportunity to change their mind. And that's basically what they're doing by doing that. And they don't change anything that court has ruled on. They just say, hey, you need to look at this shit again because
What they could have
It comes
done,
back.
I understand exactly what you're saying, and
Yeah.
I don't disagree with you. Well, what they could have done is said, listen, the injunction should be in place until you guys figure out your ruling.
well, I mean, it
Because
absolutely should.
The actual law violates the Constitution of the United States.
Right?
So if it violates the Constitution, and anybody with a brain and any honesty knows that it violates the Constitution. So an injunction is proper. Think of how many times Trump ruled on something, whether it was immigration, whatever, and they immediately put an injunction in place, and that injunction stayed.
Right.
Now you have something that directly violates the Constitution, and our Supreme Court can't leave that injunction in place.
Almost like the Constitution isn't very helpful unless you have a way to enforce it.
Right?
Weird.
Well, weird.
Again, I think that goes back to the earlier conversation we had about actual governance or just funny Twitter clips. But
So just to give you some details, the appointee who granted the injunction in May was a Trump appointee. And then the appellate judge, Frank Easterbrook, reversed the ruling. A decision that has now been supported by both the Seventh Circuit and apparently the Supreme Court.
so,
Because your inaction supports.
you bring up a good point, Dan. Like our side, the freedom and liberty side, which actually hates to do this a lot, but we have to get better at lawfare.
Yeah.
And that's not how our country is set up. The reality of our country is get really good at freaking lawfare.
Which is sad.
It is sad. I agree 1,000,000%.
But it's literally the only peaceful way to
Yes.
fix
Well,
the direction
it's
our country's going.
Like absolutely how the Dems have gotten their will and way passed when they couldn't do it legislatively. They have done it through the courts, through weird arguments. That was Roe v. Wade, other things. Not playing devil's advocate on this, but again, it is precedent for the SCOTUS to do exactly what they did when they are not ready to rule on a case. I'm not necessarily mad at them for following that precedent. Now, that being said, had they lifted the injunction or reimposed the injunction on the law, that would be technically considered a ruling, or at least a partial ruling. And they can't do that without actually hearing the case.
Well, it was already ruled that way by the initial
Right.
court.
Right, but a higher court ruled differently, and for them to change that ruling. Now, did you read the actual
The
opinion?
higher court is still seeing it.
The SCOTUS court?
No, the middle one that lifted the injunction.
They're still listening
is
to
still
it.
considering it, but the first thing they did was lift the injunction
Short.
while they're considering it.
Well,
So
that-
the Supreme
that-
Court could have said, hey, listen, the lower court initially put in the injunction. We think you should leave that until you make a ruling.
Right.
Right.
What's wrong with that?
I'm not saying what you're talking about. I mean, that's logical, and that would be fine. But the precedent there, especially when that lower court is still making a ruling on it, they usually have historically been hands off on stuff like that. Now, I agree with you. I'm all for them.
Fuck that. You're violating the Second Amendment.
No, I don't disagree with that. What
So
I'm
now
saying
all
is,
residents of Illinois
can't.
now have their Second Amendment violated. Now there's
I don't disagree.
Like
I'm
you
not.
can't go out and buy an AR-15.
I'm not agreeing. I'm not disagreeing with the principle
Sweet.
of what you're
Maybe the
saying.
prices will go down.
I'm not disagreeing with the principle of what you're saying. What I'm saying is, what the high court did is
It's par for the course.
it's par for the course.
I get it.
Yeah.
But par for the course doesn't fucking work in our world anymore.
Well, that's true, buddy. Look,
Yeah,
I mean, I don't
Like,
disagree.
why are we the ones who want to stand for our Constitution and can keep our rights? The ones that have to go with precedent and par for the course.
Right. Because
Time to fucking fight. They're telling you that the Supreme Court is illegitimate and they're doing shit that they shouldn't do.
Here's what's going to
So
happen.
fucking do it.
Here's what's going to happen. That court, with this warning that's come from the SCOTUS, and that's exactly what it is. That's a warning from the Supreme Court saying, look, you guys need to look at this shit and make a different decision.
Is it?
It is. That's exactly what. If you look back at Bush v. Gore, right here in Florida, where the Florida Supreme Court ruled that Gore won, and that the votes could continue to be counted, when it went to the Supreme Court. The Supreme Court kicked it back to the Florida Supreme Court and said, "You guys need to look at this again." They looked at it again and made the same decision that they were going to make, and then it went to the Supreme Court, and the Supreme Court overrode their decision. That's exactly what the court's doing. It's given them the opportunity, the lower court, to operate the way they should be, even though that injunction's in place. And if they don't, it'll go back to the Supreme Court, and they'll fucking...
Okay, I'm with you, but technically, they've already ruled on action in regards to this by lifting the injunction.
Well, and I'm not. What they've probably done is they've done a temporary lifting of the injunction.
Well, the injunction was temporary. They just got rid of the temporary injunction.
Okay.
So here's the problem: is conservatives, freedom lovers, liberty, whatever. There's a whole lot of them, and most of our Supreme Court justices, I'd say maybe Thomas and Alito, don't operate this way. But
No, I'll assure you, they both wanted to fucking.
But if you're, let's just call it a fight or a battle or whatever you want to call it, your opponent makes the rules. It defines what the rules are.
Right.
Whatever you may have agreed upon or whatever you think the rules are, and you may think, hey, we're getting muskets and cannons. They roll up with tanks and airplanes, and you're like, well, you know, we said muskets and cannons. And I'm going to uphold these principles because, okay, well, you're going to die. Like,
Yeah.
you're going to die.
You lose that war.
So your opponent makes the rules of engagement. Period. And if you don't meet those rules of engagement, you lose. Example, Afghanistan for 20 years. I mean, I can go Vietnam, Korea, like we can go on and on and on and on. Until we understand that our opponents make the rules of engagement and we have to fight with equal and opposite force, we just continue to lose. And that's our problem. That's where we struggle because we don't want to. We want to be principled. We want to uphold the Constitution. We want to uphold precedent. We want to do all that. I really don't give a damn about none of that. Just go win. Just win. At this point,
Who would be
and I'll
mad
sort
if
it out
that,
later.
Who would be mad if that article said that the Supreme Court reversed that decision and put the injunction in place in lieu of a decision of that appellate court?
I don't think anybody would be mad. And I think y'all are thinking I'm defending
No,
something.
I understand.
I don't think
just
you're
telling
making a
you.
different
I'm not
point.
pushing back. What I'm telling you is that line of thinking, which I'm not saying is your line of thinking. What you're talking about is kind of the baseline of where most conservatives would be, right? I'm not saying that's you or even the Supreme Court justice. But those rules no longer apply. We don't give a flying fuck about precedent. I don't at all.
Basically, what I'm looking at with the Supreme Court and what they've done is when your kid gets out of line and they start acting up and you say, you need to rethink that shit. Now, your kid's already messed up. And they say, you need to rethink this or something about to happen.
Yeah, but if the kid runs out in traffic by messing up, you're not going to let him run out in traffic. You're going to grab him by the fucking scrawl of his shirt and pull him back and fix it and then teach him how to think correctly.
Again, I'm not arguing.
No.
I agree with you.
And I don't think Dan or
I'm not
think
arguing
you're-
with you.
Right,
I don't
yeah.
think you believe.
But that
This,
line of
you're
reasoning,
just-
which is where a whole lot of people are.
You're just articulating
Yeah,
precedent and the way things are going.
articulate how the rules of engagement are supposed to work.
That line of reasoning and those rules of engagement work if your opponent upholds those as well.
Sure.
When they refuse those, guess what?
All bets are off.
Now you're just choosing to lose.
Yeah.
Like
All bets are off. You better fight to win.
Yeah,
as opposed
and the
to-
rules of engagement when it comes to courts is you assume you're supposed to assume and trust that the courts are arbiters and aren't activists. Well, unfortunately,
Right,
we
that's
do
out
have
there.
activists.
We're about
That's
20
out
years
there.
late on that one. Yeah,
Which
we're about 20 years
which
late.
was the
Totally.
lower court that lifted the injunction? Was it the Illinois Supreme Court? Was it the appellate court?
Appellate court.
The federal appellate court.
Yeah, so you have the Illinois Southern District granted the injunction in May. The appellate court reversed the injunction ruling, and the Supreme Court didn't do anything about it. Because it was taken to them.
Yeah. Right.
Say, here, look at this. And they went,
Yeah.
yeah, we're going to let you guys
Yeah, I mean,
fuck around
so,
with this.
you know, so-
in the meantime, people in Illinois can't buy it.
Right, and that's my only point is that may be precedent and rules of engagement previously. It doesn't mean a hill of beans to me. And until we decide it doesn't mean a hill of beans as a movement, if that's what we actually are, then we're just going to keep losing. That's my point in it is whether that's right or not. I don't know, but I think we're in a real blurry situation of right and wrong these days.
See,
Yeah.
I have no issue with, I don't want to say the term using force, but forcing the rules of engagement. I have no problems with that. However, if we have rules of engagement and we don't force them, and then we start operating outside of rules of engagement, it becomes problematic because, yes, short-term victory may be upon us, but the long-term victory, I mean, because...
Oh, we're in a problematic time. So
Yeah, I mean,
We're there, brother.
absolute
I'm not trying
power
to cut you
corrupts.
off, right, yeah,
Absolutely, but yeah, I mean,
But okay, but we're past that point now.
well, then we need to just take up the arms, man, and just go ahead and fucking dissolve the whole thing and start over and learn from those lessons and
maybe get a few states, maybe in the south, southeast, and
Well, here's the problem with that.
I'm not mad at that. You know, I'm a secession. I'm all for secession. I mean, you know.
The other problem to look at is the people that we are trying to convince, the people that we're trying to change or to see a different avenue, are the product of this system.
Right.
The people who know nothing other than this type of situation. Right. From the millennials to Gen Z, they don't live. They weren't around to see Reagan and people prior to that rule and govern. They only know, and if you think about your political maturity,
I was 7.
it's really.
I was 7 when Reagan left office.
It's really Obama. All they know is Obama.
Yeah. Agreed.
So how do you change their minds? Because they've only lived in a world of Obama.
Well, you've got to. You know what?
And they're all fucking activists.
Like,
I mean,
you've got to pass legislation where every single United States citizen, before they vote, listens to 30 episodes of the Driveway Liberty podcast.
There you go.
Anything short of that, and the country's gone.
Right, absolutely. With that being said, guys, we are out of time.
That's a good way to end it right there.
Right, yeah, that's a good one. So be sure to share the podcast with your friends and family. If you enjoy the podcast, go to patreon.com/Driveway Liberty Podcast. You can actually sponsor the cast. We are looking for business sponsors. If you'd like to advertise on this podcast, we'd love for you to do that. For Travis and Dan, I am your Uncle Wes, and we will see you next time on the Driveway Liberty Podcast.
You